Before anything else, let your shoulders drop an inch. You don't have to absorb this. You don't have to take notes or sit up straight or get anything out of the next few minutes. This is the kind of thing you can let play while you tidy the kitchen or lie on the floor for a while, so just let it be in the room with you. We're going to talk gently about something that's probably been bothering you for a long time, because I guess you've noticed it. You sit down to do one thing, a real thing, the report or the chapter or the long email, and within a minute or two, there's a pull. A small itch to check something, to switch, to glance away. You read the same paragraph 3 times. You open a tab and forget why. You used to be able to sink into a book for an hour, and now 10 quiet minutes feels like holding your breath. And underneath all of it, a familiar little verdict has moved in. Something's wrong with me. My attention is shut. I've let my brain rot. And of course, the usual suspect is sitting right there on the desk, glowing. So you decide. The answer is obvious. It's a phone. You just need more willpower. You just need to put it down. So let me say the thing I most want you to hear before any explaining begins. You are not broken. Your brain has not rotted. You have not lost some focus muscle that everyone else still has. And the deepest reason you can't focus is not the phone in your hand. The phone is real, and we'll get to it, but it's a symptom, not the disease. The actual problem is that you were handed completely the wrong picture of how attention works, and you've been fighting yourself with that wrong picture for years. Here's the moment I mean. You finally start the hard task. Things are just beginning to come together in your mind, and then a thought floats up. I should just quickly check that one thing. It takes 10 seconds. You check, you come back, and you tell yourself nothing was lost, because it was only 10 seconds. But when you try to drop back into the work, the thread is gone. You're standing at the edge of the thing again, having to wade back in from the start. And you feel that small, grinding friction, and you read it as a personal failing. See, I can't even focus for 2 minutes. That friction you keep blaming yourself for is the single most important clue in this entire video. It isn't weakness, it's physics. Here's what the research actually says, in plain language. Your attention is not a switch you flip from one thing to another. When you turn away from a task, even for a second, a part of your mind stays behind, snagged on what you just left. A researcher named Sophie Leroy gave this a name. She called it attention residue. In her studies, when people switched tasks, a piece of their focus stayed stuck on the first one, and their performance on the new task dropped. The residue was worst when the thing they'd left was unfinished, which, let's be honest, almost everything we glance away from is. So every quick check doesn't cost you 10 seconds. It leaves a smear of the old task on the new one, and a smear of the new one back on the old. And the cost of climbing back in is larger than anyone tells you. Gloria Mark, who has studied attention at the University of California for 2 decades, found that after a single interruption, it takes around 23 minutes to fully return to the original task. 23 minutes. And here's the part that should take the blame off your shoulders. Her data shows the average time a person now spends on one screen before switching has collapsed. Around 2004, it was about 2.5 minutes. By a few years ago, it was roughly 47 seconds, and then we move. So picture the arithmetic of an ordinary day. You're paying a 23-minute re-entry cost over and over, and you almost never get a clean 23 minutes to pay it with. You're not failing to focus. You're being charged the tax you were never told existed, all day long. So here's a way to hold this that I think is truer than the focus muscle story. Deep attention is not a switch, it's a fire. When you sit down to concentrate, you're not flipping something on, you're building a small fire from cold tinder. It takes a few minutes of patient, fragile tending before it catches and gives off real heat and light. That warm, absorbed state where the work finally flows and time disappears, that's the fire burning well. But a fire that's just catching is the most fragile thing in the world. One gust of wind, one glance at the phone, one quick check, and it gutters out. And then you don't get to relight it instantly. You're back to cold tinder, building from nothing. We keep blaming ourselves for not being able to summon the flame on command, but you were never supposed to summon it. You are supposed to build it slowly and then shelter it from the wind. I'll tell you how I learned this, because I lived the scatter version for years and called it being productive. I was the person with everything open at once. 2 screens, a dozen tabs, the phone face up beside the keyboard so I'd never miss anything, music with lyrics, a podcast I wasn't really hearing. I felt busy from morning to night and I got almost nothing real done. And I blamed myself for it, hard. I decided I had no discipline, that my generation's brains were ruined, that I just needed to white knuckle it and try harder tomorrow. Trying harder never worked, because I was trying harder at the wrong thing. I was trying to force a fire to stay lit in a wind tunnel I built myself, and then hating myself when it kept going out. The day things actually changed wasn't the day I found more willpower. It was the day I stopped attacking my character and started, very gently, blocking the wind. So let's name the wind kindly, because it isn't really a villain. It's a design, and you were never told how it worked. The reason the phone pulls so hard isn't that you're weak. The things on it are engineered around something deep in the brain. We tend to call dopamine the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. It's closer to a seeking signal, a wanting signal, and the research is clear on a strange detail. Dopamine spikes hardest not for a reward you expect, but for one you can't predict. That's the engine of a slot machine, and it's the engine of a feed. You pull, and you might get something delightful or nothing at all, and the not knowing is what keeps you reaching. So the phone isn't competing with your focus on a level field. It offers instant, unpredictable little rewards, while your actual work offers a slow fire that takes 20 minutes to warm up. Of course the eye drifts, and the addiction doctor Anna Lemke describes a further turn of the screw. When the brain gets a steady flood of cheap, easy stimulation, it tries to rebalance, and ordinary, slower things start to feel flat by comparison. So a quiet book can feel almost unbearable, not because something is wrong with you, but because your baseline got moved. The good news in her work is that, given a little space from the stimulation, that baseline tends to drift back. So here's the big reframe, the one idea this whole video turns on. Focus was never a willpower problem. It's a protection problem. Attention, real attention, is a fragile state that needs to be built and sheltered. And almost everything about the modern day keeps it scattered instead. And those 2 words are the whole story. Scattered attention is the default. It's what happens when you do nothing, when you leave the phone on the desk and 12 tabs open and let every passing pull have its way. Protected attention is the opposite, and it almost never happens by accident. It's something you set up calmly in advance by deciding what gets to reach you and what doesn't for a little while. The culture tells you the fix is to fight the pull harder in the moment, to resist, to muscle through. But you can't out-willpower a slot machine for 8 hours. What you can do is build a small shelter where the wind can't reach the fire, less scattering, more protecting. And the governing principle falls right out of that. The work that actually nourishes you, the deep, absorbing kind, doesn't arrive the instant you sit down. The psychologist who named the flow state, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, found that this absorbed condition needs an uninterrupted runway, often 15 or 20 unbroken minutes before it fully takes hold. 15 or 20 minutes with no gust of wind. Now look honestly at your day and ask when you last gave yourself that. If you're switching screens every 47 seconds, the fire never once gets to catch. So here's the contrast that changes everything. Scattering tries to focus in single moments and fails, because a moment is too short to build anything in. Protecting defends a runway, a stretch of unbroken time, and lets the focus build itself inside it. You are not trying to win each individual second against the phone. That's an unwinnable war, and losing it is not a character flaw. You're trying to protect one clear runway long enough for the deep state to arrive on its own. Defend the runway, and the focus takes care of itself. Let me make that concrete, because it stays abstract until you can picture it. Imagine 2 people sitting down to do the exact same 90 minutes of real work. The first one scatters, the way most of us do without thinking. phone face up beside her, email open in a tab so she'll see anything important. A few quick checks because each one is only 10 seconds. At the end of 90 minutes, she's exhausted and the work is barely started, and she ends the day certain she has no discipline. Now the second person protects. And notice, it costs her almost no willpower at all. Before she begins, she puts the phone in another room. Not on silent, in another room, so reaching it costs a walk. She closes everything except the one thing. She sets a timer for 25 minutes and makes a single quiet deal with herself that until it rings, there is nothing else in the world she's allowed to do but this. For the first few minutes, it's uncomfortable. The itch to check is strong, but there's nothing to check, so the itch has nowhere to go and it fades. And somewhere around minute 12, the fire catches and she's in it. Same brain, same 90 minutes. The difference wasn't discipline. It was a sheltered runway instead of a wind tunnel. So how do you actually protect instead of scatter? You stop trying to win in the moment and you change your surroundings instead. And again, this is research, not vibes. Our behavior follows the cues and the effort in our environment far more than it follows our good intentions. So you don't ask, how do I resist the phone today? That question loses. You ask, how do I make distraction a little harder to reach than the work? Put the phone in another room, so checking it costs a walk instead of a glance. Close every tab but one. Turn off the notifications that yank the eye, because a fire can't catch if the wind never stops gusting. None of this is willpower, it's shelter. You're not becoming a more disciplined person by force. You're becoming a person who quietly arranged the room so the focus could happen on its own. And the relief in that is enormous, because it means the tired day, the low willpower day, is exactly the day it still works. The shelter doesn't need you to feel strong, it just needs you to set it up once. And if you take one tactic from this whole video, take this one. I call it the protected hour, though it can start much smaller than an hour. The rule is simple. You choose one block of time and inside it you have exactly one job, and you remove the wind before you begin, not during. So, pick the block. Send the phone to another room. Close everything but the one thing. And then the only real rule is that nothing else gets to reach you until the block ends. Not a check, not a glance, not a quick anything. You're not promising to feel focused, which you can't control. You're promising to protect the runway, which you can. And here's the move that makes it gentle and not another rod for your back. Start the block absurdly small. Not an hour. Try 10 protected minutes. Open the one document and write a single sentence, with the wind already blocked. Because the hard part was never staying in the fire. It was building it from cold and keeping the first fragile minutes safe. Protect 10 minutes, let the fire catch once, and you'll feel something you'd half forgotten was possible. Then you can let the block grow on its own. So picture who you become when your attention is protective instead of scattered. You sit down, and for a stretch, the world gets quiet. Because you've made it quiet on purpose. The fire catches. You drop into the work and look up an hour later, a little surprised, the way you used to as a kid lost in a book. You stop ending your days with that hollow, jangled feeling of having touched 100 things and held none of them. And slowly, without ever declaring war on yourself or your phone, you become someone who can still go deep, who still has that quiet, full attention available when something matters. Not because you fought harder, but because you stopped leaving your focus out in the wind. And here's the part the willpower crowd gets exactly backwards. The kindness here is not the soft option. When you have a scattered, distracted day, and you will, meeting it with a shrug and a fresh protected 10 minutes tomorrow is what keeps you coming back. Beating yourself up just adds more noise, and noise is the one thing a fragile fire can't survive. Being gentle with your own attention isn't what makes you lose it. It's the thing that lets you keep returning to it. So here's your one small thing for today. Not a detox, not a new system, not throwing your phone in a lake. Just one protected pocket of time. Pick one task you've been meaning to do. Before you start, carry your phone into another room, genuinely another room, and close everything on your screen but that one thing. Set a timer for 10 minutes. And until it rings, that one task is the only thing in the world you're allowed to do. That's the entire assignment. You're not promising to focus for an hour. You're not promising to change your life. You're just building one small fire in one sheltered spot and letting yourself feel what your attention can still do when nothing is allowed to scatter it. And if something here landed, if you're tired of blaming yourself and ready to protect your attention instead of fighting it, I wrote a short, free guide for exactly this kind of person. It lays out the whole gentle system for making good habits like a protected hour survive your real and messy life. Aiming for most days instead of a perfect streak, starting so small that beginning is almost free. And the one rule that keeps a scattered day from becoming a scattered month: never miss twice. It's called the Forgiving Habit. The link's in the description and pinned in the comments. And it's free. No cost, no catch. If this is the kind of calm you'd like more of, you're welcome to subscribe and settle in with us. Until next time, be rigorous with your systems and gentle with yourself.